A disability is something that has a major impact on your life.
Every disability is different.
And it's never the same thing for two people. I am blind in my right eye totally and partially sighted in my left eye.
I was 18 years old. We were traveling way too fast on a gravel road. Broke my neck, my back.
My Asperger's syndrome and my cerebral palsy.
I have anxiety and depression. People would have no idea just talking to me.
Being independent means different things to different people.
I want to live in my own house. I want to pay my own bills.
Live independently and not rely on other people.
When someone is not able to live as independently as they can, it does have a detrimental effect on people's physical and mental well-being.
It's no complicated thing. It's just that people with disabilities want to be included.
Plenty of people get stuck in ruts when they feel like they can't overcome something in their life. That's where Lyft comes in.
Living independently for today and tomorrow. Lyft. We help people of all ages and all types of disabilities find the resources or acquire the skills to live as independently as possible.
We serve the southeastern 18 counties here at the Billings office. We have a variety of things that we offer. We can help with grant funding for adaptive equipment.
Maybe a home modification so they're able to access their home. We help people to find that funding.
Helping people apply for Social Security benefits.
Medicaid, Medicare, housing.
They have a peer support group. Peer support, I think, is key.
Sharing life experiences is one of the most powerful things to help people who might be new to disability, who might be struggling with their disability.
Youth transitions is kids that are transitioning out of high school. They need to learn those adulting skills. It might be rent an apartment, learn how to grocery shop, budgeting.
Help someone advocate for themselves in a school or an employment setting. One of our biggest strengths is providing folks with information and referral. If we can't help you, we hope to know who can.
A lot of times we'll have a potential consumer call in and they think that they just have one need, and it turns out that we end up finding 3 or 4 things we can actually do for them.
You can just come in and say, hey, I feel like I have this going on. Can you help me? And we can, which is so cool to me. I love that.
Most of us on staff at Lyft have identified ourselves as having one or more disabilities. That is helpful in many cases.
It's easier to empathize with someone when you yourself have struggled with a disability.
This is what we specialize in. This is who we are, and this is what we do.
And it costs nothing to go to Lyft. It's a nonprofit organization and they're there to help.
Somebody that was a consumer that was working with Lyft was asked to do an art project. He visualized that the balloon helps to lift people up. And then it became the logo, and it's stuck.
There's been success on all kinds of levels.
It's really rewarding to have a consumer go, hey, I was able to do this by myself today.
We want people to live their best life as independent as possible.
Live as everyone else in society and live as a part of society, not apart from society.
Everybody needs help. Sometimes you just need a little more help, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay.
There's plenty of life to live still, and there's a way you can do it. Keep chipping away at it, little by little by little.
Knowledge is power. Let's share it, for crying out loud.
Send us an email, give us a call. We'll do our best to help.
We can definitely help figure out what your needs are and get started on that. We're one of many steps in the path to independence, and we're happy to be serving people here in the community.
Good day, and welcome to another episode or edition of Living Well in Montana. Living Well in Montana is a program of living independently for today and tomorrow. LIFT is an advocacy and resource center for persons with disabilities serving in our 18 counties in southeastern and south central Montana. My name is John Robison. My pronouns are, he and him. I am the Outreach Director, Community Health Worker Supervisor. With me today is my co-host, Miss Brittany Hoff. And then we have our special guest, Miss Theorius Willer. We're going to have a great program today. So with that, let's get into it. Introduce yourself, Miss Brittany.
I'm Brittany Hoff. My pronouns are she, her, and I am an IL specialist and outreach representative.
There we go. And Miss Theo, the amazing person we love. Tell us about yourself, who you are, what you're doing, and why we're here today.
Well, as you said, my name is Theorius. My pronouns are they, them. I am 20 years old, and I've worked with you guys at LIFT for about 6 months now. And for the last few months, I've been gathering resources so that we can officially offer our consumers help with acquiring service animals.
Nice. Okay. Why can the service animal be important to our consumers?
So many people could benefit from a service animal because they are considered technically medical equipment or an accommodation, a reasonable accommodation for work, public life, personal life. And a lot of people don't necessarily know where to start or how to get their own service animal, and so it could be very valuable to our community to be able to offer that service and guide people through that process.
Okay.
And what are service animals?
So a service animal is a dog that is individually trained to do work or perform tasks for people with disabilities. So that could look like a medical alert dog, such as high blood sugar, high blood pressure, seizure alerts, psychiatric service dogs, so they can help alert for panic attacks, they can help with grounding and autistic meltdowns. There's mobility service animals, so they can help, you can lean on them if you need assistance with balance, they can help with navigating. Obviously there are guide dogs for those who are visually impaired, and honestly, for most disabilities, is probably a task a service animal could provide. It just depends on the individual person and their needs.
So I got a question for you about that. So I've been on a plane before, and I've seen a person on the plane with a parrot. And they say that parrot is their service animal. Can you help me or enlighten me on this?
So there has been, in kind of the public view, a lot of people who aren't necessarily as thoroughly educated on the ADA or Americans with Disabilities Act and the laws that follow that. So a service animal under the ADA is a dog, or in some rare cases, a miniature horse, like again for mobility, because they have sturdier hips and bones and such, and so sometimes it's better to have a miniature horse for that than a dog. But a service animal is a dog. A more accurate description could be an emotional support animal, but that is not the same as a service animal. Again, only dogs, and in rare cases, miniature horses can be service animals under the ADA.
So just for clarification, service animals are dogs, and miniature horses. Anything else falls under that realm of emotional support, right?
Yes.
Okay. We just want to clarify that. Here in the Billings area, recently we've done the Billings Farmers Market, and down there's a couple of instances of issues with people walking around with some unique critters, saying that they were the service animals, but obviously we know the defined difference. Okay. So number 4.
So in public places and that, for like restaurants, stores, and all that stuff, what are the policies in place for service animals?
So under the ADA, state and local governments, businesses, and nonprofit organizations that serve the public generally must allow service animals to accompany people with disabilities in all areas of the facility where the public is allowed to be. There are exceptions to that. For example, the amusement park. You can take your dog to the stalls and along with you when you're, trying to hit the pins down or whatever, but you can't take your dog on the roller coaster. Another example of that would be at the zoo. Let's say there are some predatory animals like lions or tigers or something that could react to a dog in the area. They may ask that you have someone wait with your dog outside of that exhibit while you experience it, and then but you are still allowed to take your dog to every other place in the zoo. Another example of that could be hospitals where they need sterile environments. They can restrict service animal access there. But the general rule is, unless they would have to change the nature of the business or service they provide, service animals are allowed to go wherever the public is allowed to go.
And with that service animal to be allowed to go in any public place, does that mean they have to have their vest on showing their service animal? Or can you enter with them and respond to the company saying, this is my service animal, even though they don't have their vest on?
Right, so under the ADA, there is no requirement for visible verification of a service animal. They don't have to have a vest, a bandana, nothing. Specifically in Montana, a service animal in training must be marked visibly. So again, a bandana, a vest, something along those lines. But nationally, under federal law, you cannot be required to have a vest for your service animal. You can just bring them with you.
I'm assuming there's a possibility that vest or other things could actually possibly hinder the animal in doing what it's supposed to do sometimes, right?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay.
So it depends on the task again. So like I said, for grounding, one task is very common, is deep pressure. So the dog would either climb its forelegs up into your lap, or depending on the size of the dog, it might climb fully onto your lap and provide deep pressure and kind of interrupt panic attacks. And so for some people, a vest might get in the way of that, depending on the person's disabilities. The same law also applies to leashes. So unless it gets in the way of a task, service animals are required to be leashed. So again, if someone is in a wheelchair and they need a service animal, but they push themselves, a leash would not be accessible for them. And so under the ADA, their service animal would not have to be on a leash, but that only applies to when it would get in the way of the task or of the individual person's disability.
Okay. Back to the question that Ms. Brittany asked regards the policies going to businesses, stores, and other places. If a business facility doesn't allow service animals or whatever the case is, must that place have a marking or something out there at the entrance to identify that these animals are or are not welcome?
Again, it's anywhere that the public can go, so a grocery store, a gas station, anything like that, service animals must be allowed in.
Okay.
Even restaurants, the dog is not allowed up in the booth on a chair, but is allowed to be tucked under the table. Yeah. Again, it's mostly rule of thumb, public health and safety. In a restaurant, the dog can be under the table, but it can't be laying in the aisle where people need to walk.
Okay.
And so in the instances where someone is not able to bring in their service animal, again, like exhibits at the zoo and sterile environments, they are still legally allowed to enter without it. They are supposed to be given the option to have someone with them, ideally like a friend or a family member who's traveling with them or, with them at the time, watch the service animal while they are still able to experience or get whatever they need to get.
Okay. So next question, let's say I have a service animal, and let's say if I'm in a restaurant, are there any questions from, let's say, employees or staff are there any questions that employees or staff can or cannot ask in regards to the service animal?
There are, under the ADA, again, the Americans with Disabilities Act, there are 2 questions that you people are legally allowed to ask you, and only two. And that is the dog a service animal required because of a disability? And what work or task has the dog been trained to perform? So for example, let's say I'm a staff member, I can come up to you and ask you, is that a service animal? And you can say yes. And I can say, what task is that service animal trained to provide? And you can say medical alerting. And that's it. They cannot require you to tell the dog to perform the task and prove that they can do the task. They don't require any sort of verification or doctor's letter or proof of a service animal. They are allowed to ask you those two questions.
Okay, I like it. Thank you. Six.
Can a person with their service animal be told that they are not allowed to have the animal in certain spaces?
Yes. So as I said before, in places that are sterile medically, like certain areas of hospitals, on a roller coaster and certain amusement park rides, there are niche areas in which it is just not healthy or safe to have an animal. And the staff are not responsible for watching the animal. The handler needs to make arrangements for someone else to watch them if they would like to continue. But legally, the handler is still allowed to go wherever they need to go with the opportunity to go without their service animal. You cannot be restricted in total because you have one. They can restrict the dog in some cases, but not the handler.
Okay.
Okay. Let's say if I never heard of Lyft, or even if I'm a current consumer, and if I need assistance in acquiring a service animal, how can Lyft assist with this?
So firstly, we can help provide resources and help find information to even see if a service animal is something that will help, and if so, how they can help. And then we can also help with finding funding sources in case the cost of training is too much for that individual consumer financially.
Okay. Thank you.
What's the approximate timeline for the process of receiving assistance getting a service animal?
So the approximate timeline depends on what service they're needing, such as if they're just needing help getting in touch with a national organization like Guide Dogs for the Blind, or whether they're wanting to train their own. If they're wanting to train their own, then the grant foundation that we use typically for the funding meets quarterly. So at the very longest, they would wait approximately 4 months from beginning to end. Some of the national programs we can help them apply for and walk them through that process, but they do have wait lists, and so it depends on the individual program for how long it would be before they actually had a service animal.
So would they just go on a waiting list, or is it more like they check out what the person's disability and kind of see who needs that service animal more to put them higher from other people that their disability is a little bit lower?
So typically it is just a waitlist process. Once you get towards the top of the waitlist, they will notify you, and then typically they will do some form of an intake and discuss with you your needs and resources, and then will work with you to find the dog appropriate for you and to train the dog. So going through a national program is better for some people, but it can take much longer.
Okay.
And that's awfully depending on where within that granting cycle that we get the paperwork complete and submitted, because obviously they meet every quarter. So let's say if we get if the grant cycle, the paperwork has to be in, let's say December 15th, on average, or just as a estimate. So if we go with the December 15th, if we get the paperwork in by November 15th, that wait time acknowledging whether or not it is approved or denied could only be 2 months.
Exactly.
On average.
So
Okay.
it depends on which program you go through. If someone wants help with funding to train their own animal versus going through a national program where they provide the dog, the training, all up front, this process can take shorter and in some cases less money.
Okay. So back to the training by the individual or by a professional trainer. Are there any cons of, what are the cons of going either way?
So when training your own dog, one of the biggest factors is temperament. I knew someone who went through Guide Dogs for the Blind and got her dog, and his puppy raisers had gone through 3 litters before him, Ellery, had gone through the full program and was able to become a guide dog. It takes a really special kind of dog to have the right temperament and skills to be able to not only complete the training, but to do the job on a daily basis. And that is just something that is not, you can't really measure that necessarily, and there's no guarantee that the dog will be able to complete the training and have the temperament to be a successful service animal.
So just for the temperament portion, is there any specific type of dog that is either recommended, not recommended, or does it depend on the dog itself? Because there's a lot of controversy. For example, people say that Rottweilers would be horrible, but I raised Rottweilers for a little bit, and I bred them, and so I understand that they're how you treat them and how they're raised. Obviously, temperament's huge with them, you know. So is there a recommended, or is it just dependent on the animal?
It really depends on the animal. Typically, people go with working breeds, so shepherds, retrievers, Labradors, but under the ADA, any breed of dog can become a service animal. It really does depend on the individual dog.
Okay, thank you.
And then another con of going through a professional trainer would potentially be the cost. There is, while some national programs are free, a lot of them also cost money, and going through a professional trainer also costs money, and it can be rather expensive. And then there is a level of commitment from the handler to commit to consistent training and keeping up with it. You know, if you're trying to do even basic obedience training with a dog, if you're not consistently telling them to sit, consistently using those commands and practicing what you're trying to teach them, they're not going to learn. And so it is a large responsibility for a handler.
So on average, how much can the training cost?
Anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 if you're going through a professional trainer or through a national program. Under the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, handlers have the right to train their own dog personally and not go through a trainer. Some tasks it is easier to train yourself. Like I said, the alerting to anxiety attacks and things like that. But other things such as high blood sugar, blood pressure, things like that can be a little bit harder to train yourself. And that's where we can come in, is we can help find those resources for consumers to be able to train their own animals, but you still have to pay for the shots of the dog and the grooming and adoption fees and the food and, you know, everything else that comes with having a dog.
Yeah, okay. So do you have any advice for a person who is thinking about getting a service animal?
I would say that they should take some time and do some research and try and figure out if it would be a good fit for them. You know, some people, for a broad generalization, some people have breathing issues, and so the best fit for them is an inhaler, while others might just need a CPAP machine for at night. And so depending on each individual person, there might be other accommodations that would be better suited for them and their disability. So it's important to take the time and do the research and see if it's a good fit for you, and if you're able to make that commitment and take on that level of responsibility that comes with a service animal.
Nice, thank you, Theo. Okay.
And do you recommend any resources for someone that is researching information for service animal?
Top of the list is the ADA website, Americans with Disabilities Act. It's just ada.gov, and they have entire sections about the laws of service animals and resources and things you should know and FAQs, and they have a lot. And then Disability Rights Montana also has a page about service animals and emotional support animals and therapy dogs. And so they have a lot of resources for specifically Montana laws and how that works here. And then additionally, the American Kennel Club and Psychiatric Service Dog Partners are also great resources to look into.
Okay. That is amazing. Okay.
Very interesting.
Do you have any additional comments or anything else for us today?
I would say that a lot of people actually don't know the difference between a service animal, an emotional support animal, and a therapy dog. That is one of the with the parrot, some people might have assumed that was a service animal.
Yeah.
So the difference between the three is that a service animal is task trained. They have specific things they do on certain cues or commands to help the person with a disability. An emotional support animal, their presence itself helps relieve the symptoms of the disability or help a person with a disability cope with their situation. And so for them, it's just presence-based. And a therapy dog is a dog trained to help other people with their emotions. So for example, the dogs that go into hospitals and go around the pediatric units, those are therapy dogs. Their handler isn't the one receiving the help. It's the people that the dog is instructed to help.
I was up at Billings Clinic not that long ago, and they actually had someone in there with a miniature horse doing that. I thought that was amazing. Pretty horse. Well, I have nothing else. Do you have anything else?
Not right now, I don't.
The,
Very good information that you provided with us today.
Thank you, Ms. Theo. A lot
You're
of great
very welcome.
information. Before we do the wrap up, just so that the viewers are fully aware, please give us a call or go to our website at www.lift.org to find out further information, further services that we offer. For example, Living Well in Community classes, nutrition education classes, community health worker program. We offer a lot, so please check us out. You want to go ahead and do the wrap up?
Yeah. So we are coming to the end of our time. I would like to thank my host, John, and our guest, Theo, for joining the program. For more information about Lyft and its programs, please visit our website at lyft.org or download our app for your Apple or Android device. This and all Living Well in Montana episodes can be found on our site, the Community 7 website, and Lyft's YouTube page. Thank you for watching.
Have a good day.